Talk to me about home Opie. Are you excited? Do you get jitters?
You know what? I do.
Good.
Like, it's just good. Like, that just means you're alive. And I think that, like,
Yes.
I will always get jitters. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's
Of
like,
course.
Take a moment, people, to picture this. You are the owner of a basketball team. Finally, you have the most popular player in the entire sport. All of the arenas are reserved. There are now 3 times as many people watching television. Sponsorships are becoming more common. Then, just a few months after a disastrous playoff series in which another team's coach saw her guys beat, bruise, and bleed your young star, you return and designate the same coach to lead your squad. There is no speculation in question. That's exactly what the Indiana Fever did. When Sophie Cunningham, one of the league's most outspoken players, finally spoke on a podcast and said what every fan was already shouting at their TV, the floodgates opened. Today, we are going through the entire story piece by piece. After reading this, you'll have a good idea of why so many die-hard basketball fans think the NBA has a major issue. It's important to set the scene before discussing the subject, because to understand why supporters are so angry, you must understand what Caitlin Clark actually means to this league. In April 2024, the University of Iowa's Caitlin Clark was chosen by the Indiana Fever as the first overall pick in the WNBA draft. Nor was this a typical draft choice. Clark has shattered numerous records during the previous 2 college seasons. She was the highest scorer in NCAA Division I basketball history at the conclusion of her college career, both for men and women. Think about that for a second. More points than Pete Maravich. More than Plum Kelsey's points. More points than any college player in history. She brought a style of play to women's basketball that had never been witnessed at such a high volume. 3-pointers that are well over the line. No-look passes left defenders dumbfounded. In terms of pace and attitude, it was more like seeing Steph Curry than a normal point guard. She consequently carried eyeballs with her. In terms of television ratings, her college games shattered all prior records. That year, more people watched her final game at Iowa than the men's title. 9 million people attended the women's championship game on average. Nothing like that had ever happened before. When she joined the WNBA in May 2024, the Indiana Fever were more than just a basketball team. Almost quickly, they were the most watched product in women's professional sports. Tickets used to cost $15 or $20, but a year later, they were selling for hundreds of dollars. Opposing arenas had to be moved to larger spaces in order to accommodate the masses. WNBA players were eventually allowed to take charter aircraft after more than 20 years of appealing with the league. And most sportsmen will tell you that one player is to blame. Because of her, the story takes its first negative turn at this point, because not everyone in the league was pleased with this. Not even close. From the first preseason game, it was evident that Caitlin Clark would not be welcomed with open arms. Veterans in the league had a word for it. They called it paying your dues. And it was clear how they decided to make her pay every single night. In June 2024, just a few weeks into her rookie season, Chicago Sky player Chindi Carter shoulder-checked Clark to the ground on a dead ball. That is to say, the play was already over. The whistle blew, launching her into the air. The league initially called it a common foul, but the message has already been dispatched. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you enjoy the content. It may surprise you to learn that almost 90% of viewers have not yet subscribed. Even though it only takes a second and is free, it means the world to us. Have you already subscribed? Fantastic! I sincerely appreciate your help. Let's return to the video now. This is what you will experience as a rookie in this league. Later that summer, Clark was slammed to the ground by another body check from Chicago Sky player Diamond DeShields. Again, the impact happened far away from the ball. Again, it was raised to a flagrant after the fact. It was a different night, a different opponent, and the same script. Then, on June 17, 2025, during a game versus the Connecticut Sun, things worsened. A Sun guard named Dejonai Carrington poked Clark in the eye. Shortly after, Sun guard Maisha Hines-Allen shoved Clark to the ground. Fever's bench exploded. Sophie Cunningham, who had been traded to the Fever during the offseason, left her feet, ran in, and physically intervened to protect her teammate. When that one video of Cunningham defending Clark went viral, her jersey sales immediately surged. Supporters had been yearning for a voice. Finally, someone did. But none of those events, including those involving Carter, DeShields, Sheldon, and Maisha Hines-Allen, quite compare to what happened in the postseason of 2024. Because that's where the narrative really takes off. Before we get there, I want to take a moment to talk about something that I think a lot of older fans observed, but that the national media kind of overlooked. During her rookie season in 2024, Caitlin Clark led the WNBA in flagrant fouls. I'll say it again, because it's worth saying twice. The first overall choice collected more flagrant fouls during her rookie campaign than any other WNBA player. That is not the norm. Most beginners do not feel that way, no matter how thrilled they are. You can argue whether that was a coincidence, her playing style, or something more deliberate. Disagreements regarding it will always exist. But the number itself is just a fact that appears in the box scores. It is also one of the reasons why fans started to question how this league was managing its most prized new addition. Another significant issue is how she was discussed by the rest of the league. It was clear that several players didn't enjoy the attention she was getting. Angel Reese, a rookie, coined the phrase "special whistle" to describe what she saw as biased refereeing that favored Clark. During interviews, a number of veterans talked about how Clark needed to be humbled, learn the league, and earn her spot. Some of that can be explained by the usual dynamics between rookies and veterans. Every league has it. But in terms of its intensity, volume, and social media dissemination, it was unprecedented. Furthermore, Sophie Cunningham would subsequently explain that it originated from something completely unrelated to basketball. September 22, 2024. Uncasville, Connecticut is home to the Mohegan Sun Arena, the first game of the WNBA playoffs. In their first postseason match since 2016, the Indiana Fever will take on the Connecticut Sun. On the opposite sidelines was Stephanie White, a female head coach of the Connecticut Sun. Remember that name. Stephanie White, because she is the second primary character in the narrative. Less than 2 minutes into the first quarter, Caitlin Clark made a straightforward pass to her teammate Aaliyah Boston. Dejonai Carrington, a Sun guard, rushed in to attempt to block the pass as it was being made. Her hand reached down and her fingernail, which was, by all accounts, a long acrylic nail, entered Clark's right eye. Clark collapsed to the ground, clutching her face. No foul was called. The play was allowed to continue. Now, I want to be really fair. Both Deonna Carrington and Caitlin Clark openly said after the game that they didn't believe the contact was intentional. The next day, when a reporter asked Clark about it, she basically dismissed it. "Why no way was it deliberate. All you do is watch the play." I'll quote her when she says it wasn't deliberate. As a result, I want to be sure that we are dealing with facts rather than conspiracy theories. But this is also accurate. The fingernail touched her eye. When she departed the game, she did have a noticeable black eye. She also made 4 of her team's 17 field goals in a 24-point defeat. Whether or not the play was intentional, there was a significant bodily cost. And one of the most well-known photos in WNBA history is that one of the league's first overall pick clutching her face on the floor. The Sun won the opening game. They won the second game. They eliminated the Fever from the playoffs in just 2 games. Watching it all from the sidelines was head coach Stephanie White, whose team had just sent Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever home for the season. If you are an Indiana Fever fan, you can recall every second of the series. The bruises, the hard fouls, the eye poke, the trash language, and the feeling that your young star had just gone through a meat grinder. You think, okay, we lost when the news is announced. We must become more resilient, in order to safeguard our franchise player and ultimately advance this club. We need a coach. On October 27, 2024, the Indiana Fever declared their intention to remove head coach Christy Sides. Seasons 20 and 20 were finished by Sides. In the first and 8th years, she had guided a team to the postseason. By every measure, she had fulfilled her responsibilities. But the front desk wanted more. They wanted a championship coach. They were searching for someone who could turn this gifted member of the generation into a champion. Then, who did they hire? A few days later, on November 1st, the Fever made the formal announcement. Their new head coach was Stephanie White. Yes, Stephanie White. 6 weeks earlier, Stephanie White had been on the sidelines when her team sent Caitlin Clark home from the playoffs with a black eye. You're not the only one who finds that confusing. Fans on social media went bonkers. The hashtag started to trend in a few minutes. People found it unbelievable. To lead their budding star into year 2, the front management had chosen the same coach whose defensive tactics had recently penalized her. But since Stephanie White is not a random hire, we must now stop and take into account the opposing perspective in order to be fair. She is an avid basketball fan, and her resume is hard to refute. Born and bred in Indiana, she was a legend at Seeger High in West Lebanon. The lone Big Ten Conference Women's Basketball Championship was won by Purdue University in 1999 under her leadership. She then played with the Indiana Fever for 4 of her 5 WNBA seasons. She went back to Indianapolis as an assistant coach in 2011, and she was on staff when the Fever won their only championship in 2012. She then served as the Fever's head coach in 2015 and 2016, after leaving to coach Vanderbilt, where she finished a total 55 and 25 in her 2 seasons. She returned to the WNBA with the Connecticut Sun. She made it to the semifinals in both years. She won the title as Coach of the Year in 2023. By many measures, this is one of the best basketball minds in women's basketball. Therefore, the front office did not view this as a betrayal. It was a trip back home. The renowned Indiana basketball star has returned to lead the squad she founded. That's the press release version of the story, but here's the issue. Fans don't live in the world of press releases. Fans are there at the time. Most Indiana Fever fans remember their 22-year-old star clutching her face while kneeling. As a result, when the news was made, the comment sections were unfriendly. An insider eventually started speaking at this point in the story, which makes things start to get really interesting. That individual is Sophie Cunningham. For those who are unaware, here is a quick overview of Sophie Cunningham. When she played collegiate basketball at the University of Missouri, she was the second highest scorer in school history. The Phoenix Mercury selected her in the 2019 draft. During her 6 seasons in Phoenix, she gained a reputation as a tough physical guard who wasn't afraid to mix things up with anyone. In February 2025, she was subsequently traded to the Indiana Fever. Suddenly, she was sharing a locker room with Caitlin Clark. Additionally, she quickly made it clear whose side she supported. When the eye poke and shove happened on June 17th, Cunningham was the one who got up and intervened. After that game, her jersey sales are said to have increased dramatically. Fans started calling her Clark's Enforcer, a moniker she accepted. Show Me Something is a podcast that Cunningham and co-host West Wilson from the Bravo series Summer House launched in July 2025. In the first episode, she also doesn't hold back. She is asked about people who say Caitlin Clark isn't the face of the WNBA. And she stated almost exactly this. "She's not the face of the league," is a statement that literally bothers me. What? There are several outstanding, well-known people in our league. I'm not making fun of them. Our league is full with badasses. Yes, without a doubt. I don't mind at all. However, if you try to argue that she isn't the face of our league or that we wouldn't be where we are without her, you're just as foolish as JID. You truly are incredibly foolish. Even if I somewhat altered that quote for transmission, you understand the idea. Her fury didn't stop there. I'll quote her again. "This is what we've always wanted as a league." Then, who cares who gets the credit? If you're smart, you can also benefit from them. You are literally making money from the viewership. Let's put that aside for a moment because, in her own words, she is basically denouncing every coach and player in the league who has harbored anger for Caitlin Clark on her own podcast. Look, she continues, the money is up. The ratings have gone up. The charter flights are finally available. Everyone benefits from this league. Anyone who ignores that or is too jealous to admit it, she says, is just as foolish as the EFF. It's not at all subtle. That seasoned player went on record during her first season on a new team to assert that jealousy exists in this league and is driving people to act recklessly. Vocalist Sophie Cunningham would only say that out loud since she has seen it firsthand. She has been to those sites of change. She has heard those conversations. She knows. Now, I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit more about Sophie Cunningham, who was mostly overlooked by casual fans until this story took off. She has actually long been one of the most intriguing figures in the WNBA. Knowing where to look was all that was required. She grew up in Columbia, Missouri. Her mother played basketball at Missouri. Her two older sisters played basketball for Missouri. You guessed it. Sophie went on to play basketball at the University of Missouri. Only Joan Cronin outscored her as the program's second highest scorer by the time she graduated from college. She began 4 years ago. She was the kind of player who would leap to the ground to retrieve a loose ball during a preseason scrimmage. Her collegiate reputation followed her into the workforce. The Phoenix Mercury chose her with the 13th overall pick in the 2019 draft. She was the kind of player that every coach loves because she was a tough role-playing guard who would put in the hard work for 6 seasons in Phoenix. Defense, guard spot rebounds, and hard fouls in the paint. She wasn't well known. She didn't behave like a famous person. She averaged 6 to 10 points per game, depending on the season. She became a fan favorite, nevertheless, after her performance in Phoenix. She engages in a physical altercation with the whole Las Vegas Aces bench in a video from a 2022 playoff game. That gives you all the details you need on Sophie Cunningham. In February 2025, a deal was made between the Indiana Fever and the Phoenix Mercury. Cunningham agreed to a 3-team deal with Indianapolis. Suddenly, she was on the same squad as Caitlin Clark. Supporters who had seen that awful first season also thought the deal was nearly too good to be true. Because at difficult times, Sophie Cunningham is the only player in this league you would want beside your team star. Almost immediately, Cunningham and Clark grew close. On her show, Cunningham talks about Clark with a fervor that is hard to fake. They criticize each other. They tease each other in public. In a moment of total candor, Cunningham said that she was negotiating a new deal with the Fever. I'll quote her again. "I know I'm healing from a significant knee injury, so it was never about the money. It was all about the years because I wanted to be with them." A girl may love her teammates. God forbid. It is not a player engaging in PR games. That's a basketball player who made a home for himself. Sophie Cunningham is not someone looking for power, which is why her testimony on the Stephanie White situation is so crucial. She's not trying to stir up controversy to secure a book deal. For the first time in her career, she has finally found a team and a colleague she genuinely enjoys after 7 seasons as a journeyman professional in this league. When she comes out about scorn, jealousy, and what really occurs in locker rooms, she's doing it from the viewpoint of someone who has nothing left to prove and nothing to gain by lying. More than anything else, this is why what she said on her podcast resonated deeply. This is what I think is important to understand. When Sophie Cunningham said all of that on her podcast, she wasn't just defending her friend. She was validating what millions of casual basketball fans have been saying for over a year, whether intentionally or not. The Players Union, the league, and numerous traditional sports media sites have been working hard to dismiss this as simply angry fans on Twitter. Think about Sophie Cunningham's identity. She's not a beginner. She's not trying to make a name for herself. She has 7 years of WNBA experience. She took part in the league championship game. She's been around long enough to know exactly how the locker rooms work and what happens on behind closed doors. When someone with her degree of credibility looks into a microphone and calls Caitlin Clark's treatment in this league envy, it is no longer a fan theory. That's a working professional using her own platform to share her personal thoughts with you. This is the other part. She repeated herself. I'm quoting Cunningham when he said, "That's literally bull." In response to sports analyst Skip Bayless' suggestion that some of Clark's ailments during the 2025 season were actually mental breaks caused by veterans jealousy. Nobody is lying. Not being able to play is the hardest part when you're an elite-level player, she continued, emotionally, physically, and mentally. She refused to give up. She was working harder. Connect with Stephanie White now. Stephanie White was Dejounte Carrington's coach for 2 seasons. Under White's coaching, Carrington won the 2024 WNBA Most Improved Player Award. As a result, when Stephanie White joins the Indiana Fever, fans don't recall her resume. They remember that Carrington was on her squad. They remember how Clark was struck in the eye by Carrington's fingernail. They remember that no foul was called. They remember that Stephanie White, who was observing from the sidelines, did not take her player out of the game or apologize. Now, that same coach is in command. As a result, fans are furious. There are other factors besides recruiting. It has a higher metaphorical connotation. Since the fan response is, to be honest, one of the most intriguing aspects of the whole narrative, let's discuss it. Many fans at home seem to believe that the league looked to the most violent and aggressive defensive coach in the game, whose team had just left the biggest star of the league covered in bruises, and said, you know what? Let's give her control over that star and see what happens. After the hiring was announced on November 1st, 2024, negative comments entirely dominated the Indiana Fever's social media posts. They called it betrayal. They called it sabotage. Some people were reportedly canceling their season tickets. Boycott gained popularity. Adult men and women were complaining in paragraphs on Facebook about how the front office had failed their squad. Calls flooded Indianapolis sports talk radio station. On national sports networks, the news was the main story of the afternoon. Now, since this is important, I want to tell you the truth. That response was somewhat overstated. It was somewhat the fault of those who don't really follow the league as a whole and only watch one guy. To be fair to Stephanie White, there were valid basketball-related considerations for the hiring decision. The 2024 Fever had the best offensive per possession in the WNBA after overcoming their slow start. They were ranked 10th out of 12 teams based on their defensive rating, nevertheless. That is not sustainable in the playoffs. If you want to win a championship, you must play defense. Whatever your opinion of Stephanie White, she has established herself as a superb defense coach. But fans don't look at spreadsheets. Fans watch as their idol is poked in the face, but nothing happens. A coach stands on the sidelines with her arms crossed while fans watch their 22-year-old get beaten for 40 minutes. Therefore, even though the basketball argument is sound, from a fan's perspective, the emotional justification for the hire was wrong from the beginning. Something else also came to light in the days after the hiring. Before firing Christy Sides, the Indiana Fever had thought about employing Stephanie White, according to the Chicago Sun-Times. Read that again. Before Christy Sides was fired, the Fever had already started talks with the woman who would replace her. That may or may not be against league rules, depending on your interpretation of the bylaws. Many fans, meanwhile, felt it was awkward. It seemed intentional. The players seemed to have decided on White before the old coach had even cleaned her office. Thank you for watching.